The great space station hung in the darkness like a glowing city. It was bigger than most planets and home to thousands of different alien species. This was the Galactic Council Station, where the most important decisions in the galaxy were made. Today, the main meeting hall buzzed with worry and fear. Representatives from 12 different worlds sat around a massive circular table. Their voices mixed together in a chorus of panic and frustration. The problem was simple to understand but impossible to solve. The Vorthok Empire had blocked the most important trade route in the galaxy. For 3 months now, no ships could pass through the Kepler Nebula. This meant no food, no medicine, no supplies could reach the outer colonies. Millions of beings were starting to suffer. Ambassador Jiwan sat quietly in the human section. She was young for a diplomat, only 35 years old, with short black hair and calm dark eyes. Humans had only joined the Galactic Council 20 years ago. Most of the older species still saw them as newcomers who did not understand how. Things worked. At the center of the table, Fleet Admiral Corrin stood up. He was a Threnar, an insect-like being with 4 arms and compound eyes that glittered like diamonds. His voice clicked and buzzed as he spoke. "Honored council members," he began, "I must report another failure. Yesterday we sent our finest battle fleet to break through the Vorthok blockade. They destroyed us completely." Worried murmurs filled the room. Counselor Thiz, a tall crystal being from the Zephyrite worlds, made musical tones that translated as questions. "How many ships did we lose this time?" 47 vessels, Admiral Corrin replied. "The fortress in the nebula is unlike anything we have ever seen. It phases in and out of normal space. Our weapons cannot lock onto it. When we do manage to hit it, the damage heals itself within minutes." The fortress he spoke of was a marvel of Vorthok engineering. It sat right in the middle of the only safe path through the Kepler Nebula. The nebula itself was a huge cloud of colorful gas and space dust that stretched for light years in every direction. Only one narrow channel allowed ships to pass through safely. The Vorthok had built their fortress right in that channel. Counselor Vex of the energy beings called Luminans pulsed with angry red light. This blockade is an act of war against all free peoples. The Vorthok demand tribute from every ship that passes. They want us to give them technology and resources we cannot spare. "The tribute demands are impossible," agreed Admiral Corrin. "They want 50% of all trade goods, plus access to our military technology, plus colonization rights to 3 systems. If we agree, they will control half the galaxy within 10 years. Ambassador Jiwan listened to all of this with growing interest. She had studied the reports about the Vorthok fortress. Every attack had failed in the same way. The enemy would detect incoming ships, analyze their weapons, and adapt their defenses. Within minutes, they could counter any strategy. Had tried massed plasma cannon attacks. The fortress learned to deflect plasma. The Zephyrite had used their crystal resonance weapons. The fortress developed crystal shields. The Luminans had attempted to disrupt the fortress with pure energy. The fortress absorbed the energy and grew stronger. "What about a combined assault?" suggested Counselor Kex from the Peaceful Farming Worlds. "If all our fleets attack together with different weapons, perhaps the fortress cannot adapt to everything at once." Admiral Corrin's mandibles clicked sadly. "We tried that 2 weeks ago. The fortress has multiple defensive systems. Can adapt to several different attacks simultaneously. We lost 90 ships in that battle." The room fell silent. Everyone knew what this meant. If they could not break the blockade soon, the outer colonies would face famine and disease. Entire civilizations might collapse. But if they agreed to the Vorthok demands, they would all become slaves to an empire that cared nothing for peace or freedom. Counselor These resonated with deep, mournful tones. "Perhaps we must consider surrender. The cost of fighting may be greater than the cost of submission," never growled Admiral Corrin. "The Threnari will fight until our last ship is destroyed. And what will that accomplish?" asked Counselor Vex. "Dead heroes cannot protect the innocent." The argument that followed was loud and bitter. Some wanted to keep fighting. Others wanted to negotiate. Few suggested abandoning the outer colonies entirely and pulling back to defend the core. Worlds. Ambassador Jiwan stood up slowly. The hall gradually grew quiet as beings noticed the small human rising to speak. She was not tall or impressive like the other delegates. She wore a simple blue uniform with no decorations or medals. But something in her calm confidence made others want to listen. "Honored council members," she said in her clear, steady voice, "I have listened to your discussions with great interest. The problem you face is indeed difficult. The Vorthok fortress has defeated every conventional military strategy." "Yes," said Admiral Corrin. "That is exactly the problem. Do humans have some new weapon that can succeed where ours have failed?" B'Duan smiled. It was not a boastful smile or a cruel one. It was the kind of smile someone might wear when they knew a secret that would make everyone happy. "Admiral," she said, "humanity does not possess superior weapons technology. Our ships are not faster than yours. Our guns are not more powerful. Our shields are not stronger." Counselor Theses made confused harmonics. "Then what can you offer that we cannot provide ourselves?" The human ambassador looked around the room, meeting the eyes or optical sensors of each delegate. When she spoke, her voice carried absolute certainty. "We can offer you something no other species has tried. We can offer you a solution that the Vorthok fortress will never see coming because it goes against everything logical military thinking teaches." "Explain," demanded Admiral Corrin. Giwan's smile grew wider. "Honorable Council, humanity requests permission to resolve this crisis. We cannot promise it will work. We cannot even promise it makes sense. But we can promise it will be unlike anything the Vorthok have ever encountered." The delegates looked at each other with confusion and hope warring in their expressions. Finally, Councillor Vex pulsed with curious yellow light. "What exactly are you proposing, Ambassador?" Juwan spread her hands in a gesture that somehow managed to be both humble and confident at the same time. "Leave it to us." 3 days after the Galactic Council meeting, Admiral Hyunwoo stood in the command center of Earth's orbital military station. The station hung above the blue and green planet like a metal moon, its spinning sections creating artificial gravity. For the thousands of humans who worked inside, Hyunwoo was a tall man with gray hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. He had fought in the border wars against the Centauri pirates and led the defense of the Titan colonies. But this mission was unlike anything he had ever faced before. "Show me the fortress again," he said to his tactical team. "Lieutenant Commander." Minji activated the holographic display. The image showed the Kepler Nebula in all its terrible beauty. Swirling clouds of purple and gold gas stretched for millions of kilometers. In the center, where the safe passage ran through the nebula, sat the Vorthok fortress. The fortress looked like a giant crystal flower made of dark metal and glowing energy. It was 3 kilometers wide and constantly shifted between solid matter and pure energy. When it was solid, weapons could hit it but did no damage. When it was energy, weapons passed right through it harmlessly. "The adaptive defense system is the real problem," said Captain Dowen, the mission's chief engineer. He was younger than the admiral, with quick hands that were always moving as he talked. "Every time someone attacks the fortress, it learns from the attack. By the time the second wave arrives, the fortress already knows how to defend against that weapon type." Dr. Sora looked up from her research terminal. She was the team's expert on alien biology and psychology. Her desk was covered with holographic models of Vorthok brain structures and behavioral patterns. "The Vorthok mind works like a very advanced computer," she explained. "They think in pure logic. Everything they do follows mathematical patterns. They expect their enemies to think the same way." Admiral Henwu studied the fortress data while his team worked around him. The command center buzzed with activity as hundreds of officers prepared ships and gathered intelligence. Everyone knew this mission would either save the galaxy or end in complete disaster. "Tell me about their previous battles," Hyunwoo said. Minji pulled up battle recordings from the failed attacks. The Threnari tried direct assault with plasma weapons. The fortress analyzed the plasma frequency and created counterfields within 4 minutes. The Zephyrite used crystal resonance weapons that should have shattered any structure. The fortress learned to vibrate at a different frequency and became immune. The Luminans tried energy disruption, added Dowen. The fortress absorbed their energy and used it to power stronger shields. Every attack made it stronger. Dr. Sora highlighted sections of Vorthok's psychological profiles. They expect logical military responses. Flanking maneuvers, siege tactics, technological warfare. Their entire defense system is built around predicting rational behavior. Hyunwoo nodded slowly. So they can counter any sensible military strategy. Exactly, said Dr. Sora. Their weakness is that they cannot understand irrational behavior. If something does not make logical sense, their minds simply cannot process it properly. The Admiral walked to the main viewing window and looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, the Vorthok fortress waited for the next logical attack that it could easily defeat. Somewhere out there, millions of beings suffered because no one could think of a solution that made sense. Captain Dowan, he said finally, what is the most irrational thing a military force could do when facing an impregnable fortress? Dowan's eyes lit up with sudden understanding. Are you thinking what I think you were thinking? I am thinking we need to do something so completely insane that the Vorthok defense systems will not know how to respond. Lieutenant Commander. Mingi leaned forward with excitement. Something that goes against every rule of military strategy. Something that makes no tactical sense whatsoever, agreed Doctor. Sora Admiral Hyunwoo turned back to his team. The Vorthok expect us to attack their fortress. They have prepared for every possible weapon, every possible strategy, every possible approach that could threaten their position. So we do not attack the fortress, said Dowan. We do not threaten their position, added Mingi. We do something they will never expect because it serves no military purpose, finished Dr. Sora. The Admiral smiled. It was the kind of smile that made enemies nervous and allies excited. Exactly. We are going to do what humans do best. What is that, sir? Asked Mingi. Something completely ridiculous that somehow works perfectly. The next 6 hours, the team worked on their plan. What they developed would have horrified any military academy instructor in the galaxy. It violated every principle of warfare that had been established over thousands of years. It made no logical sense from any strategic perspective. It was absolutely perfect. Let me understand this correctly, said Dr. Sora, as they reviewed the final plan. Instead of attacking the fortress, we are going to redecorate the entire nebula. That is correct, said Admiral Hyunwoo. We're going to turn 3 cubic light-years of space into an art project, said Captain Dowan. Very special art project, confirmed the Admiral. And you believe this will somehow neutralize the most dangerous military installation in the galaxy, said Lieutenant Commander Mingi. I believe it will do something the Vorthok fortress cannot defend against, said Hyunwoo. It will confuse them so completely that they will forget to fight back. Dr. Sora pulled up her research on Vorthok brain chemistry. Actually, sir, this might work better than you realize. My studies show that Vorthok neural patterns are extremely sensitive to certain types of visual stimuli. If we could create the right kind of display, we might be able to induce a state similar to hypnosis. Or madness, added Dowan cheerfully. Either would be acceptable, said the Admiral. They spent another 4 hours working out the technical details. The plan required precise timing, enormous amounts of equipment, and cooperation from dozens of ships. Most importantly, it required keeping the true purpose secret from everyone except the core team. The Vorthok will be monitoring all our communications, explained Mingi. If they discover what we are really planning, they might find a way to counter it. So we tell everyone this is a mining operation, said Dowan. That will explain why. We are placing equipment throughout the nebula. Very large mining operation, agreed Dr. Sora. Admiral Hyunwoo looked at his team with pride. In just one day, they had created a plan that no other species in the galaxy could have imagined. It was uniquely human in its complete rejection of logical thinking. Prepare the ships, he ordered. Tomorrow we show the galaxy what happens when humans decide to solve an impossible problem. Sir, asked Mingi, what do we tell the crews about? Our mission? The Admiral's smile became even wider. Tell them we are going to make the Kepler Nebula beautiful. The first human ships arrived at the edge of the Kepler Nebula, just as the local star was rising. The nebula stretched before them like a wall of swirling purple and gold clouds. Deep inside those clouds, the Vorthok fortress waited, General Kethris stood in the command center of the fortress, watching his sensors with growing confusion. The Vorthok were a proud warrior race, tall and lean with silver skin that reflected light like metal. Their eyes were large and completely black, designed to see in many different spectrums of light. "Report," he ordered his tactical officer. 15. "Human vessels have arrived at the nebula perimeter," replied Major Voss. "They are maintaining safe distance and have made no aggressive moves." General Kethris studied the sensor readings. The human ships were mostly cargo vessels, not warships. A few escort fighters accompanied them, but nothing that could threaten his fortress. "What are they doing?" he asked. "Unknown, sir. They appear to be deploying mining equipment into the gas clouds." This made no sense to General Kethris. The Kepler Nebula contained some valuable minerals, but mining operations required months of preparation and thousands of workers. These humans had arrived with only a few hundred people and basic equipment. "Are they trying to establish a mining colony?" asked Major Voss. "Impossible. The nebula is too unstable for permanent installations. Any mining platform would be destroyed by the gas storms within days." On the human flagship Resilient, Lieutenant Junho coordinated the operation with calm efficiency. He was a young officer with steady hands and a quick mind. Around him, his crew worked at their stations with the focused energy of people who believed in their mission. "Package deployment at 27%, reported Ensign Tyke from the cargo bay. "Teams 3 and 7 have finished their sections. Teams 1 and 5 are still working." Junho nodded and switched to the engineering channel. "Dowen, how is the network installation going?" Captain Dowen's voice crackled through the comm system from his ship. "The ingenuity. Better than expected. The mineral content in these gas clouds is actually helping with signal transmission. We should have full connectivity within 2 days. It's excellent. Remember, keep everything looking like standard mining operations." What the humans were actually doing bore no resemblance to mining. Each mining device they placed in the nebula was actually a sophisticated piece of equipment. Disguised to look like a simple mineral extractor, hidden inside each device were holographic projectors, signal amplifiers, computer systems. The devices were connected by what appeared to be standard communication cables. In reality, these cables carried enough power to light up a small city. The entire network was designed to work together as one massive system spanning the entire nebula. Dr. Sora monitored the operation from the research vessel Discovery. Her screen showed detailed maps of Vorthok brain chemistry and neural response patterns. She had spent years studying how different alien species processed visual information. "The placement pattern is crucial," she explained to her research. "Team, we need complete coverage of the fortress's visual range. Every angle must be covered, or the effect will not work properly." "What exactly will the effect be?" asked her assistant, Dr. Wanbin. "Think of it as overwhelming their visual processing." "Centers," Dr. Sora replied. "The Vorthok brain tries to analyze everything it sees for logical patterns. When we activate the display, we will show them patterns that are beautiful but make no logical sense. Their minds will not be able to process the contradiction." Back on the fortress, General Kethris grew more puzzled by the hour. The humans continued placing their mysterious devices throughout the nebula. His sensors detected no weapons, no shields, no obvious threat. But something about the systematic way they worked made him nervous. "Sir," reported Major Voss, "the humans have now deployed equipment in over 200 locations. The pattern makes no sense for a mining operation. Show me the deployment pattern." The tactical display lit up with dots, representing each human device. General Kethris studied the pattern for several minutes. The devices formed a complex three-dimensional network that surrounded his fortress from every direction. But they were too far away to be weapons and too small to be serious threats. "Have our intelligence teams analyzed the equipment?" he asked. "Yes, sir. Long-range scans show mineral extractors, communication relays, and power systems."
"Oh,
"That appears dangerous. But why place them in such a specific pattern?" Major Voss had no answer. The human deployment made no logical sense from any military perspective he could imagine. On the human ships, the work continued around the clock. Teams of engineers and technicians moved through the nebula in small shuttles, placing devices and running cables with practiced efficiency. To any observer, it looked like the largest and most pointless mining operation in galactic history. Lieutenant Junho checked his progress reports every few hours. Status update: all teams. Team Alpha has completed Grid Section 7, reported Sergeant Kyung from Shuttle Bay 2, moving to Section 8. Team Beta finished early, added Corporal Miho. Ooh. We are starting on the backup installations. Team Gamma reports some technical difficulties with the cable routing, said Chief Petty Officer Sung. But we should have it resolved within 6 hours. Junho smiled as he watched the tactical display. Completed section showed up as a green dot on his screen. Soon the entire nebula would be covered in their network. Then the real fun would begin. The human operation attracted attention from across the galaxy. Ships from the Galactic Council maintained safe distances and monitored the situation. The Threnari sent scout vessels to observe. The Zephyrites positioned sensor platforms to record whatever happened next. Admiral Korin of the Threnari fleet transmitted regular reports to the Council. The humans continue their mysterious activities. Our analysts cannot determine their purpose. The equipment they are deploying appears to be completely harmless. Ambassador Giwan received these reports at the Council station. She maintained her calm diplomatic expression while reading each update. Inside, she felt growing excitement as the pieces of the human plan fell into place. Counselor Thesis approached her after the latest briefing. Ambassador, your people have been working for 3 days now. When will they attempt to break the blockade? Smiled mysteriously. Counselor, the blockade breaking is already in progress. We are simply setting the stage. Setting the stage for what? For something the Vorthok have never seen before. By the end of the 3rd day, the human network was 75% complete. General Cathrus had observed every move, analyzed every device, and studied every pattern. His best tactical minds could find no threat in anything the humans had done. This worried him more than any direct attack would have. On the 4th day, General Cathras woke to alarm sirens screaming through his fortress. He rushed to the command center, still fastening his armor, expecting to find enemy ships attacking from all directions. Instead, he found his tactical officers staring at their sensor displays in complete confusion. Report, he demanded. Major Voss turned from his station with a bewildered expression. Sir, we are detecting massive energy buildups throughout the nebula. Every human device is powering up simultaneously. Are they weapons? Unknown, sir. Energy signatures are unlike anything in our databases. They do not match any known weapon types. General Kethris studied the tactical display. Hundreds of red dots appeared across the nebula, each one representing a human device drawing enormous amounts of power. The pattern completely surrounded his fortress from every possible angle. Raise all shields, he ordered. Activate all defensive systems. Charge main weapons. Yes, sir. The fortress hummed as its advanced systems came online. Quantum shields flickered into existence around the massive structure. The adaptive defense network began running millions of calculations, preparing to counter whatever attack the humans were planning. Sir, reported the sensor officer, the human flagship is transmitting on all frequencies. Put it through. Lieutenant Junho's calm voice filled the command center. Attention Vorthok forces. This is Lieutenant Junho of the Human Space Navy. Please observe. Observe what? General Kethers muttered. He got his answer immediately. Every human device in the nebula activated at exactly the same moment. The result was beyond anything General Kethris could have imagined in his worst nightmares or wildest dreams. The entire Kepler nebula erupted in light, but this was not the harsh light of weapons or the cold glow of technology. This was something else entirely. The colors flowed through the gas clouds like living things. Streams of blue and silver spiraled through pillars of gold and crimson. Waves of green and purple danced together in patterns that seemed to breathe with their own life. The 3 cubic light-years of the nebula became a canvas for the most beautiful light show ever created. Holographic projectors hidden in each device painted the gas clouds with laser light and plasma beams. The images they created moved and changed in perfect harmony, like a symphony made of pure color. But the humans had not created this display just for beauty. Dr. Sora's research had revealed something important about Vorthok brain chemistry. Their neural patterns were extremely sensitive to specific combinations of light and movement. The display had been carefully designed to trigger those sensitivities. General Kethris felt something strange happening to his mind. The logical part of his brain tried to analyze the light patterns, searching for tactical significance or hidden meaning. But there was no logic to find. The display was pure art, pure beauty, pure emotion. His analytical mind could not process this contradiction. Beauty served no military purpose. It had no tactical value. Yet here it was, more magnificent than anything he had ever seen. Sir Major Voss called weakly. "What are your orders?" General Kethris tried to answer, but found himself unable to look away from the swirling colors outside. The light seemed to pull at something deep inside his consciousness. For the first time in his life, he felt wonder without purpose, joy without reason. Throughout the fortress, the same thing was happening to every Vorthok soldier. Warriors who had spent their lives focused on duty and logic found themselves crying, tears of happiness they could not explain. Tactical officers abandoned their posts to press their faces against viewing windows. Even the fortress's artificial intelligence struggled to process what it was seeing. The adaptive defense system ran billions of calculations trying to counter this new threat. But how do you defend against beauty? Logic. The AI's processors overheated as it tried to solve an impossible equation. On the human ships, the crews watched their displays with quiet satisfaction. Years of planning and preparation had led to this moment. They had turned the galaxy's most dangerous military installation into an audience for the greatest art show ever created. "Network functioning at full capacity," reported Captain Dowan. "From the Ingenuity, all projectors are synchronized. Power levels are stable, outstanding," replied Lieutenant Junho. "Dr. Sora, are you seeing the expected neural response?" Dr. Sora monitored the Vorthok fortress with her specialized sensors. "Affirmative. Brain activity patterns show exactly what we hoped for. Their logical processing centers are completely overwhelmed.
Nice.
They are experiencing pure aesthetic euphoria." The fortress weapon systems powered down automatically as their operators became lost in wonder. Shield generators shut off as engineers forgot their duties to stare at the light show. Even the communications system fell silent as everyone aboard became mesmerized by the cosmic ballet surrounding them. General Kethris found himself laughing with delight as ribbons of silver light danced past his window. Some distant part of his mind knew this was wrong, that he should be fighting back, that this was somehow an attack. But that voice grew weaker with each passing moment. The beauty was too pure, too perfect to resist. It filled every corner of his consciousness with joy and wonder. Logic seemed cold and pointless compared to this explosion of color and movement. Admiral Corrin watched from his Thranari observation ship, his compound eyes reflecting the nebula's glow. In 3,000 years of military history, he whispered to his staff, "I have never seen anything like this." The other council observers were equally amazed. The Zephyrite resonated with harmonics of pure astonishment. Illuminance pulsed, with colors that matched the display. Even the usually serious quantum collective transmitted messages of bewilderment. But the most amazed beings in the galaxy were the humans themselves. They had hoped their plan would work, but seeing it in action was beyond their wildest expectations. The Kepler Nebula had become a masterpiece of cosmic art that could be seen from 17 different star systems. "Sir," reported Captain Dowan to Admiral Heinwu, "the fortress has completely stopped responding to external communications. All weapons are offline. All shields are down." "Excellent," replied the Admiral. "Begin Phase 2. Phase 2, sir?" Admiral Heinwu smiled as he watched the greatest military victory in human history unfold before his eyes. The victory won not with weapons or tactics. but with pure creativity and beauty. "Send in the tea service," he ordered. "I believe our new friends could use some refreshments while they enjoy the show." General Kethris had never experienced anything like the feeling that washed over him as he watched the nebula dance with light. Colors flowed past his window like rivers of liquid starlight. His warrior's mind, trained for decades to think only of strategy and battle, simply could not understand what was happening to him. He was crying. The tears rolled down his silver cheeks as waves of blue and gold spiraled through the gas clouds. Each new pattern brought fresh wonder. Each shift in color filled him with joy he had no words to describe. For the first time in his adult life, General Kethris was experiencing pure happiness without purpose or reason. Behind him, his command crew had abandoned their stations entirely. Major Voss sat on the floor with his back against a wall, staring through the viewing port with an expression of complete bliss. The sensor officers had turned their chairs to face the windows. Even the fortress's artificial intelligence had stopped its calculations to focus all its processing power on recording the display. "It is so beautiful," whispered Major Voss. "How is something so beautiful possible?" General Kethris tried to form an answer, but found he had forgotten how to speak in military terms. Words like tactics and strategy seemed cold and meaningless. Compared to the wonder outside his window, in the docking bay of the fortress, Captain Dowan stepped out of his shuttle, wearing a friendly smile and carrying a thermal container of tea. Behind him came a small team of human marines, but they carried serving trays instead of weapons. "Good afternoon," Dayan said cheerfully to the Vorthok guards, who were supposed to stop him. "I am Captain Dayan of the Human Engineering Corps. We noticed your people might enjoy some refreshments while watching the show." The guards stared at him with unfocused eyes, still lost in the afterglow of the light display. One of them nodded slowly and stepped aside. The other simply sat down on a cargo container and continued gazing out a nearby. Window Doan and his team walked through the fortress corridors without encountering any resistance. Every Vorthok they met was either sitting peacefully or standing. At windows, some were still crying tears of joy. Others hummed soft melodies that seemed to match the rhythm of the lights. Outside, the humans found the command center without difficulty. The door stood wide open, and no one challenged them as they entered the most secure location in the fortress. "General Kethris, I presume," said Captain Dowan politely. "I brought tea." The general turned slowly from his window. His eyes were red from weeping, but his expression was peaceful in a way that surprised the human captain. Dowan had expected anger or hatred. Instead, he saw something like gratitude. "You did this," General Kethris said softly. "You created this miracle." "We did," agreed Dowan, setting down his tea container and beginning to pour cups for everyone in the room. "We hoped you would enjoy it. Enjoy it."
Ow!
The general repeated the words as if testing their meaning. "I've never enjoyed anything before. My people do not understand enjoyment. We understand duty, honor, victory. But this feeling you have given us, this wonder and joy, we have no words for it." Dr. Sora entered the command center carrying her medical scanner and a bag of supplies. She had spent the shuttle ride studying Vorthok brain chemistry data and preparing treatments to help them recover from their overwhelming aesthetic experience. "General," she said gently, "may I check your vital signs? The display we created has intense effects on Vorthok neural patterns. I want to make sure you are not experiencing any harmful side effects." "Harmful," the general mused. "I feel as though I have been awakened from a long sleep." "How could awakening be harmful?" Dr. Sora ran her scanner over the general and reviewed the results. "Your brain chemistry shows elevated levels of compounds associated with happiness and wonder. Your stress hormones have dropped to nearly zero. From a medical perspective, you are healthier now than you have been in years." Lieutenant Junho arrived with the final team of humans. They carried engineering tools and data tablets, ready to disable the fortress's weapons and remove the blockade equipment. But as they worked, they moved with respect and care, treating the Vorthok installation like a valuable museum, rather than an enemy stronghold. Lieutenant General Kethris called softly, "May I ask you something?" "Of course, General." "Why did you do this to us? You could have simply destroyed our fortress. Your display has made us completely defenseless." You could take whatever you wanted from us now. Junho paused in his work and looked at the Vorthok commander with genuine surprise. General, we did not want to destroy you or take anything from you. We wanted to solve a problem. The blockade was hurting innocent people, so we found a way to end the blockade without hurting anyone. But why beauty? I create something so wonderful instead of simply using force? Because, said Dr. Sora, looking up from her medical scans, force only creates more force. Violence only creates more violence. But beauty creates joy. Wonder creates peace. We thought you might prefer joy and peace to destruction and death. General Kethris stared at her for a long moment. Then, slowly, he began to laugh. It was not the harsh laughter of battle or the cold amusement of victory. It was the warm, genuine laughter of someone discovering something wonderful. My empire will not understand this, he said between chuckles. How do I explain to them that I was defeated by beauty? How do I tell them that the most powerful fortress in the galaxy was conquered by art? You could tell them the truth, suggested Captain Dowan, offering the general a cup of tea. You could tell them that humans showed you something better than conquest. Outside the fortress, the light show continued. The human ships maintained their positions around the nebula, keeping the display active while their crews worked to remove the blockade equipment. The process would take several more hours, but no one was in a hurry. The Vorthok soldiers had discovered something they had never experienced before. They were learning to appreciate beauty for its own sake, to feel wonder without purpose, to enjoy peace without victory, and in the command center. General Kethris sipped human tea and watched the cosmos dance with light, understanding for the first time in his life that some things were more powerful than weapons, more valuable than conquest, and more important than war. The blockade was ending not with explosions and death, but with tears of joy and cups of tea, shared between former enemies who were becoming friends. 3 weeks after the Battle of Beautiful Lights, as historians would later name it, the Galactic Council convened for the most unusual victory celebration in recorded history. The great meeting hall buzzed with excited conversations in dozens of different languages as representatives tried to understand what they had. Witness. Ambassador G1 sat calmly in the human section, wearing the same simple blue uniform she had worn during the crisis. Around her, the other council members spoke in tones of amazement and disbelief. Admiral Corrin of the Threnari stood to address the assembly. His compound eyes glittered with what his species considered profound respect. Its honored colleagues. He began, in 3,000 years of military history, I have studied every great battle ever fought. I've analyzed tactics that shaped empires and strategies that changed the course of civilizations. But never, in all that time, have I seen anything like what the humans accomplished. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the hall. They conquered the most heavily defended fortress in the galaxy using art. They defeated an enemy without firing a single shot. They turned warfare into a celebration of beauty. Counselor Theses resonated with harmonics of wonder. The recordings of the operation have become the most viewed cultural phenomenon in galactic history. Beings from every world want to see the humans turn a nebula into a masterpiece. The recordings were indeed extraordinary. News networks across the galaxy played them constantly. The image of the Kepler Nebula dancing with light had become a symbol of hope and peace. Children drew pictures of the colorful gas clouds. Artists tried to recreate the patterns in their own work. Scientists studied the technical achievement. While poets wrote verses about its beauty, Ambassador G1 stood to address the council. The hall grew quiet as beings waited to hear what the humans would say about their impossible victory. Honored council members, she began, we are grateful for your kind words. But we must clarify something important. This was not a victory in the traditional sense. We did not defeat the Vorthok. We befriended them. She gestured to a new section of the hall where General Kethris and a small delegation of Vorthok representatives sat. The former enemy commander looked remarkably different from the stern warrior who had once blockaded the nebula. His eyes held a warmth that had not been there before, and he wore robes decorated with colorful patterns inspired by the light show. The Vorthok Empire has requested to join our cultural exchange program, Juan continued. They wish to learn more about art, beauty, and peaceful cooperation. In return, they offer their advanced defensive technologies to help protect trade routes throughout the galaxy. General Kethris rose from his seat. When he spoke, his voice carried none of the cold authority it had possessed during the blockade. Instead, it was warm and thoughtful. As fellow beings of the Council, he said, my people lived for centuries believing that strength came only from conquest and logic. The humans showed us a different kind of strength. They showed us that creating beauty requires more courage than creating destruction. He paused and looked directly at Ambassador Juan. We came to the Kepler Nebula as conquerors. We left as students, eager to learn what these remarkable humans could teach us about wonder and joy. The response from the Council was immediate and overwhelming. The Threnari clicked their mandibles in approval. The Zephyrites resonated with joyful harmonics. The Luminants pulsed with bright, happy colors. Counselor Vex of the Energy Beings spoke for many when he said, this changes everything. If conflicts can be resolved through beauty instead of violence, if enemies can become friends through art instead of war, then we must rethink our entire approach to galactic politics. Over the following days, the Council established new institutions. Based on the human success, Dr. Sora was invited to lead the first Interspecies Institute for Creative Problem-Solving. Captain Dowan received engineering awards from 17 different worlds for his innovative use of holographic technology. Lieutenant Junho was promoted and assigned to develop new peaceful conflict resolution methods. But perhaps the most significant change came from an unexpected source. The Vorthok Empire, once feared throughout the galaxy for their military might, became the galaxy's most enthusiastic supporters of art and culture. They established museums, funded artists, and sponsored festivals celebrating beauty and creativity. General Kethris himself underwent the most dramatic transformation. He resigned his military command and became an ambassador for peace. He traveled throughout the galaxy, sharing his story of how humans had changed his understanding of strength and power. They defeated us with tea and beauty, he would tell audiences wherever he went. They showed us that the strongest force in the universe is not the desire to destroy, but the courage to create. The Kepler Nebula itself became a pilgrimage site. The human light display remained active, maintained by volunteers from dozens of species. Ships from across the galaxy made detours just to witness the cosmic art installation that had ended a war without bloodshed. Tourism to the nebula brought prosperity to the entire region. The former blockade route became the busiest and most celebrated trade passage in known space. Hotels and observation platforms were built at safe distances, allowing visitors to experience the light show while commerce flowed freely through the passage. 6 months after the crisis, Ambassador Jiwan received a private communication from the Galactic Council's leadership. They wanted to discuss humanity's role in future conflicts. Ambassador said Council Chairman Zaris during their meeting, your species has demonstrated capabilities we never imagined possible. You solved an impossible military crisis using methods that defy all conventional wisdom. Giwan smiled the same mysterious smile she had worn during the original crisis. Chairman, we simply did what humans do best. And what is that? We refused to accept that something was impossible. When everyone else saw a military problem requiring a military solution, we saw an opportunity for creativity. Chairman Zaris leaned forward with interest. The Council has a question for humanity. There are other conflicts brewing in distant sectors, problems that conventional diplomacy and military force cannot resolve. Would your people be willing to apply your unique perspective to these challenges? Ambassador Jiwan's smile grew wider. Chairman, whenever the galaxy faces the impossible, the illogical, or the completely unprecedented, you know what to do. What is that? Leave it to us. As she spoke those words, Ambassador Jiwan looked out through the Council Station's great viewing window toward the distant stars. Somewhere out there, new challenges waited. New problems that others would call impossible. New opportunities for humanity to show the galaxy that creativity, courage, and a little bit of beautiful insanity could accomplish anything. The age of human solutions had just begun.